So much better since I laid my burden down. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. Glory, 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 glory. Hallelujah. 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 Since I laid my burden down. Since I laid my burden down. Hallelujah. Since I laid my burden down. Since I laid my burden down. I feel better, so much better. 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 I feel better, so much since I just walked in and you was playing that music and it was prophesying that that's for somebody. When God gives a new song, somebody's burdened this morning, but God said if you lay your burdens down, you will feel better, so much better. So in this service, you're going to be lifted to a new level and God is going to heal you today. Somebody say, God's going to heal me today. Say, I'm getting my deliverance today. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. I'm in God's house. I'm in God's house. You're not at home right now. Somebody say, I'm in God's house. And I came to see God. I came to see God. Hallelujah. Come into His presence. Come on, y'all. Come into His presence. Come into His presence. Hallelujah. We allow Him to come into His presence. With thanksgiving in our heart. Yeah. Somebody say, WWF. WWF. I am a worshiping warrior. I'm gonna worship and I'm gonna war. I'm gonna worship and I'm gonna war. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. I am Mary Ann, your pulpit conductor for today. And Lord, we just had heaven open up to us right then and there. Right then and there. We have heaven open up to us. When we lay our burden down, we know that God is right there for us. We have a heavenly inheritance. We have a heavenly inheritance that we can be accepted by the beloved. Hallelujah. We are accepted in the beloved because we have laid our burden down. Accept Him for who He is. The one who saves, the one who sets free. Oh, hallelujah. Thank you. Hallelujah. 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 Give Him some praise. Give Him some
God. Blessed be the God and the Father of our Lord Jesus Christ. Hallelujah. Blessed be the God. We bless your name, oh Father God. Hallelujah. Woo, hallelujah. Who according to his great mercy has caused us to be born again to a living hope, not a dead hope, a living hope. Woo, through the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead. When I read it this morning, and I didn't know what scripture I was going to read this morning, and the Holy Spirit brought to me 1 Peter. And when I turned to 1 Peter, I said, that's what I read this morning. Hallelujah. We bless your name, oh Father God, because you loved us so much that you gave us your Son. Oh, that he could renew, that he could bless us, that he died for our sins. Hallelujah. Thank you, God. I thank you, God. I thank you, Daddy. We said Abba Father yesterday. We were singing Abba Father yesterday. That was awesome. Abba Father, Daddy, God. I thank you for your Son. Hallelujah. Oh, shut up my neck. We're going to get ready for our vision and our mission statement. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Oh, when it comes to praising God, I just get overwhelmed. And I know I get a little overzealous sometimes, but I love praising because he has done so much. So much. I don't know about you, but he has done so much. And I'm so glad when I look back on my life, I know he was there. He wasn't no absent daddy. He was right there, keeping me, holding me, protecting me. Yes. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Let us get ready to do our vision. Center of Attraction's vision is the best train
Glorious.
heard. We ask that you come to the mic. If you haven't done it before, we ask that you write it down, present it before the pastors so that they can judge and present it over the people. But what I heard while we was praying, when he was saying, oh God, I kept hearing over and over again like a flood. There's nothing impossible for me. God, there's nothing impossible for me. And it kept rushing and rushing and rushing and rushing and rolling like white caps on an ocean, coming in like a flood. There's nothing impossible for me. Hallelujah. Nothing impossible for me.
He loves us. Oh, how he loves us. Oh, how he loves us. Oh, how he loves. He loves us. Oh, how he loves us. Oh, how he loves us. Oh, how he loves. Come on, sing it in the baby now, sing it. He loves us. Oh, how he loves us. Oh, how he loves us. Oh, how he loves. That's why we're sing it one more time. He loves us. Oh, how he loves us. Oh, how he loves us. Oh, how he loves. I just heard God say that He loves us. He cares for us. That is what He really wants you to understand. And sometimes when it has not been demonstrated to you, you don't know how to receive the love of God. But God wants you to know today that He loves you no matter where you are, no matter what you've done in this lifetime. He loves you.
This is what I heard. I heard this morning before I left home. Psalms 34 and 1. I will bless the Lord at all times. His praise shall continually be in my mouth. Then I heard the Lord say, worshiping warriors, warring worshipers. Then I heard the three P's. Continually to praise me, continually to pray me, continually to press in me. Worshiping warriors, warring worshipers, as you continually to pray your way through, praise your way out, as you continue to press your way through, these will continually help you to get through the pressure. So continue to praise me, continue to press in me, and continue to praise your way out. Worshiping warriors, warring worshipers. Amen.
Praise the Lord. I heard that this morning also about what Prophet has said about your burdens. Just let them go. And I hear the Spirit of the Lord saying to the body of Christ that I will manifest that supernaturally faith that you have, that I have placed in you to bring forth the peace that I'm going to give you. Let those burdens go.
Amen.
So while we were singing, I just heard that God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. We serve a God that will never switch up on us. Hallelujah. We serve a God that will never switch up on us, no matter what position we are in life. Hallelujah. As Minister Jackie said, no matter what you've done, no matter where you are, He still loves us. Hallelujah. my mind on him. I don't need to keep knowing what's going on around me. I just need to look out. And if you look up there, it's a spider up there that's been in the window, that's been letting down and up, and it's still there. And so as I began to worship, I heard him say, no matter the depth, no matter the height, I am there to guide you, to help you to get through the highest heights and the deepest depths. Don't give up. Depend on me. I'll take you up. Wherever you make your bed, I am there. And the spider kept dropping down, no matter the height or the depth. But it was hanging on to something that I couldn't see. And when it went low, it also went high. And God has some things that He's going to take us low, but He's going to bring us high. When we go low in Him, we're going down in Him. So we're not going low at all because we in Him. And Psalms 139:7 says, where can I go from your spirit? Or where can I flee from your presence? If I ascend to the heavens, you are there. If I make my bed in hell, behold, you are there. If I take the wings on morning and dwell in the uttermost parts of the sea, even there your hand shall lead me. Your right hand shall hold me. So no matter what, we might can't see the ups and the downs. Like that spider that just keep on going up and down. And then the bee came and tried to tangle him, but he kept going up and out because God had his hands on him.
Now that doesn't mean you keep looking up there either.
Good morning. As we were singing here last week, I saw angels dancing, just dancing in this big circle, just dancing. Then I heard angels bow before me, heaven and earth adore me. I'm not going to sing, but you all know the song. So let's stay here. Somebody singing for me. You know what you're going to say. But that's what I heard. That angels was dancing before God. Now we're not the only ones that's dancing before God. We're not the only ones that's praying for God. We're not the only ones. Angels are dancing before God. Heaven and earth, it says, adores Him. What a mighty God! What a mighty God! We serve! What a mighty God! We serve! Heaven and earth adore Him. Angels bow before Him. What a mighty God we serve! What a mighty God we serve! What a mighty God we serve!
I'm listening to you. You don't think I'm listening to you, but I am listening to you. He knows your ups and your downs. He knows what you're going through. So you can't hide from God. You might just say, God, here I am, I'm coming clean. I got to tell you, because you know what I did, because He sees in the dark and the light. So you might as well get rid of the burdens, get rid of the guilt, get rid of the shame, and repent, and let it go. That's what God is saying.
morning speaker today will be Pastor Jack Glenn. Jackson, I'm sorry. Glenn Jackson. 36 Pastors Appreciation that will take place October 10th, 11th, and 13th. There will be no Supernatural Sunday in October. Fasting and prayers every Wednesday at 6 p.m. United Prayer. Tell someone about Jesus and invite them to church. Do we have any first-time visitors in the house today? Amen. We're all family. We're back again in the pulpit.
Well, we do have Keaton here with his new wife. Stand up, everybody. Come on. All right, Michael, we're glad to have you here. Yes. Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, it is scripture of the month. Oh, no, but don't forget. No, Apostle wouldn't allow me to forget that. So if anybody's ready, it's from Romans 10, 9, and 10. Everyone should really know this with my heart because this is one of our foundational scriptures that when we was over at Seneca Attraction West, Apostle, that was one of our Wonder Bread scriptures. So anybody ready? Go ahead. You already did yours? Oh, all right, Miss Harris.
All right. You confess with your mouth the Lord Jesus and believe in your heart. You confess with your mouth the Lord Jesus. That God is risen from the dead, you shall be saved. For with the heart one believes in righteousness, and with the mouth confessions are made as salvation.
All right. Miss Betty?
Okay. With our confess that our Jesus Lord, believe in our heart, God raised from the dead, we shall be saved. And in the heart we believe in righteousness, and our confession is made as salvation.
All right. All right. Well, it's offering time. Let's get excited. It is offering time. If you're making out a check, please make it out to COA. We do have a point of sale, Giveify that is online. If you need an envelope, please raise your hand, and the usher will bring your offering. And we're going to read from Malachi, our scripture. And in Malachi 3, 8 through 10 says, "Will a man rob God? Yet ye have robbed me. But ye say, wherein have we robbed thee? In tithes and offerings. Ye are cursed with a curse, for ye have robbed me, even this whole nation. Bring ye all the tithes into the storehouse, that there will be meat in my house, and prove me now herein, saith the Lord of hosts, if I will not open the windows of heaven and pour you out a blessing, that there shall not be room enough to receive it. And I will rebuke the devourer for your sakes, and he shall not destroy the fruits of your ground. Neither shall your vine cast her fruit before the time in the field, says the Lord of hosts. And all nations shall call you blessed, for ye shall be a delightsome land, saith the Lord of hosts." Amen.
Amen.
Prepare your envelopes. And if everyone is ready to give, can we stand so we can do our offering affirmation? If everyone's ready, our offering affirmation. As we give our tithes and offerings, we are believing you, Lord, for jobs and better jobs, raises and bonuses, benefits, sales and commissions, estates and inheritance, interest and income, rebates and returns, checks in the mail, healing and divine health, gifts and prizes, finding money, bills paid off, settlements, debts and hundredfold return according to your word. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you for those who have to give and those who have a desire to give. Lord Father God, that you do an increase in everyone's life, Lord Father God, that it is increased in Jesus' name, amen. Yeah, I'm going to have Apostle James introduce Minister Jackson.
Amen. Well, our public apology to Mr. Jackson for having on the bulletin. All right, you have all the right in the world to be upset.
Jackson, Jackson.
Hallelujah. We've already turned her over to you, and so they have the right to that over there.
Can't come back home.
Hallelujah. We just want to say this, that we were certainly proud of this young girl who the Lord gave us our firstborn, and she was born an adult. She was never a child. In that, she was so prim and proper, crossed her legs at 1.5, 2 years old, sitting just proper and prim, and just loved church, loved ministry. And one quick account of her coming up, we still have it on VHS. Remember VHS? She's coming up. Nobody asked her to come up. I don't know if she was 4 maybe. Maybe 5, all right. And we're up ministering at the altar. People are falling in the spirit. She's right there. So right beside me while I'm ministering. And, I don't know if she laid hands on a few people or not, but I always love the Lord. Very sensitive to the Spirit. She has an apostolic and prophetic mantle on her life. We're so proud of her. Married the man of her dreams in the form of Mr. Jackson here. Amen. And she has, you can give her some North Carolina love. Would you do that? She has 2 beautiful children in the form of where's Josiah's in the back. All right, Josiah, and this little beautiful thing here. Come on up here. Amen. You know we're going to showcase you. Come on. I don't know where Josiah is. Come on up here with Papa. Come on, real quick. Amen. This is little Jackie here. Her name is Zoe. All right, you want to do a curtsy? Do you know how to do a curtsy? You want to do a curtsy? One bow. Would you like to say something? Say hello to someone. Hi. You want to say something else?
You want to sing a song?
You want to sing a quick song? All right, come on.
Talk about Jesus.
Well, are you happy to be here today? All right. Are you the cutest thing on earth? All right, thank you. Go with Daddy now. All right. Now, my other daughters aren't here yet because there's always one in the group. Always one in the group. Amen. And so this is one of her two, which is Nia. Nyla is with her dad and mom right now. Nia, come on up, Nia. Come on. Come on up. This is Nia. Come on up to Papa. All right. Now, now you want to, what do you want to say? Hello. What's your name? And how old are you? Oh, come on now. You were good? All right. She's good. All right. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay. Mr. President is here. How you doing, sir? All right. Tell us something good about the Bible. Give me your scripture, anything you want to say. Give us a Bible story. Okay.
One of my favorite Bible verses is John 3:16.
You gonna say it?
For God so loved the world that He gave us His only Son, for whosoever believes in Him should not perish but have everlasting life.
What's your favorite character in the Bible?
God.
Yeah. Right. Well, thank you, Mr. President. All right. Well now. Amen. Yeah, we do have children ministers, praise the Lord. And somebody's playing something here today. But we just thank God today for getting our daughter, Jacqueline Jackson, and show her some kingdom love here as she comes. Praise the Lord. Stretch your hand forward. Father, we thank you for those with a listening ear to hear what the Spirit has to say. As she delivers the word, that she will deliver it as if you were here doing so. Thank God that with listening ears, open heart, that this word will not return void, accomplish what it pleases, prosper the thing where it has been sent to do. So now save, heal, and deliver is our prayer in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. I'm going to sing a song to the very end today. So, today I will not be giving a typical message. I'm not coming to hype y'all up today. Today I've come to share with you the heart of God concerning this season. And I want to offer to you that God wants the church to be a refuge for the lost. He wants the church to be compassion for those who really need Him. And today I come to confront the stigma. If you ask, what is the stigma? It's the shame. It's the distaste and even the misunderstanding of what God thinks about mental health. This whole weekend we've been dealing with health, but God wanted me to talk to y'all today about mental health, the stigma, confronting the stigma of mental health in the church. If some of you guys don't know, I was the minister of music at one particular church called Mount Zion for like 6 years, and I was over the youth and the young adults worship. And a lot of times what I noticed is that I would have repeat people come to the altar. Like I would have the same students come to the altar about the same thing every week. And the youth pastor at that time, I told him, I said, listen, we got to do something. Like prayer is great. Would y'all agree? Prayer is great? Yes. But these kids need a little bit more than prayer. And I was saying to him, I said, we got to figure out how we can get these children some counseling or something else, because if they're coming to the altar about the same thing every week, they realize that they need God and they need more than, they need God and they want to be free, but a lot of them don't know how to walk in the freedom that God has promised. A lot of those kids will come and they will be honest with us and transparent, which I was grateful for. But they were dealing with depression. Many were dealing with thoughts of suicide. We had girls dealing with lesbianism. I mean, this was in 2008 when I started. We even had young men dealing with gay tendencies, or even relationships. I even had to sit someone down from the praise team because they were dealing with this. We did love on them, but here's the thing, the church has to realize there's an issue that we have to deal with. And some of our immediate reactions may be, well, they didn't receive the freedom that God gave them, okay? And some of you may say, well, they just need to fast and pray and receive the healing that God has given them. Now, others may say, let's just cast that demon out. Well, let me ask you this question. Is the freedom that God gives, is that the only thing that people need? Is fasting and praying, receiving the healing that God has received, that God has promised, and casting out demons, is that the end to it all? Yes, we believe in instantaneous deliverance. We call that what? A miracle. And we know that God has offered freedom for everybody. But has the church at large stopped to say, well, maybe some of these folks need a little bit more than just prayer. Maybe these folks need a little bit more than just fasting and praying. Maybe some of these people need to deal with what's going on in their soul before they can even receive the freedom, receive the joy, receive the peace that the Lord has given them. There are some issues at hand that the church at large is not paying attention to the way that God desires. When God asked me to talk about mental health, I'm like, I ain't no therapist, Jesus. Like, I don't know much about this. So I began to do a little research, and it was astounding. And I will even talk to you more about what I realized as I began to study. But God's heartbeat is love. His heartbeat is love. So, have we considered that some people, with the help of Jesus, need to sit down and figure out what's really going on in their soul? We are made up of a body, soul, and spirit. And sometimes we focus mainly on spiritual things and forget we have a soul which is comprised of our mind, our will, and our emotions, and a body that these things flow out and through. Today, I want to share with you that there are some who have a more difficult time receiving the promises of God because they need help dealing with what has been in their soul for many, many years, and it's called mental illness. Do we expect, here's some questions, do we expect babies to chew meat? No, because we know that if babies chew meat, they will choke and potentially die. Will we give a teenager a license before he goes through driver's training? And before he even learns the law of the land? No. So why do we expect baby Christians who just learned Jesus, why do we expect them to stand on their 2 feet without mistakes? Not to say all of us think that way. Without wavering. They're going to do that because they're a baby. Right? And even those who are even a little bit more mature, maybe let's call them teenagers in the Lord, they're still going to make mistakes. They're still learning. And even more, what about we have baby Christians or even teenage Christians who have dealt with deeper trauma than most of us? They've gone through some abuse and some other things that we ourselves have not experienced. God wants us to be aware that there's a little bit more that we need to give those people. So today I want to talk to you about letting go of the shame. Because people are ashamed. They feel ashamed of dealing with mental illness, of dealing with certain things. They don't want anybody to know. And they don't even want to come to the church and let people know. Some people will, but at large, people are not sharing what's going on. And we have to be the place of safety where people feel that they can come and do that. They can share with God what is going on in their life. We have to show people, everybody say compassion and grace. So what is mental illness? Mental illness is a condition that affects a person's thinking, feeling, or mood. Such conditions may affect someone's ability to relate to others and function each day. Each person will have different experiences, even people with the same diagnosis. Here are some most common types of mental illness. Clinical depression, anxiety disorder, bipolar disorder, dementia, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, schizophrenia, obsessive compulsive disorder, autism, post-traumatic stress disorder. Did you know that the National Alliance on Mental Health reports that approximately 1 in 5 adults in the U.S. experience mental health in a given year? What does that mean? That means that every family in the United States, somebody in their family is dealing with mental health. And God wants us to be prepared to give them not only hope, which is in Him, but also to give them more assistance for their freedom. Mental health as a physical issue. Throughout Scripture, we see biblical figures such as David, Job, Elijah, and Jonah dealing with deep feelings of despair. How many of y'all dealt with despair? Deep feelings of despair. Anger, depression, and loneliness. Some of these things can be attributed to spiritual warfare. How many believe that? And I want to make sure you know that some of that it is spiritual warfare. Sometimes we are fighting against the enemy, but perhaps some of these things are of a physical nature. Since we know that our bodies go awry at times, it's possible that what we are experiencing is related to chemical imbalances or other things happening with our brains. How many people have, like when I was in school, we used to do all-nighters. I only could do it like once or twice. I realized I was not that child who could do an all-nighter. But how many people know other people who deal with insomnia or a lack of sleep? Well, what are some side effects of that? They say that some people would hallucinate. Some people may go into a deep depression. Everybody knows Michael Jackson's situation. All right? And some people even deal with migraines. That person is not in their right mind. So if something that simple as insomnia can cause effects in our brain, how about people who are really dealing with mental illness? Other places throughout Scripture shows God using elements from the earth, such as leaves and figs, to assist in the healing process. And let's turn to Ezekiel 47 and 12. I'm going to prove that to you. Ezekiel 47 and 12. It says, "And by the river upon the bank thereof, on this side and on that side, shall grow all trees for meat, whose leaf shall not fade, neither shall the fruit thereof be consumed. It shall bring forth new fruit according to his months, because their waters they issue out of the sanctuary, and the fruit thereof shall be for meat, and the leaf thereof for medicine." So this is showing you that even God used different plants for medicine for people who were going through illnesses. Let's also turn to Isaiah 38:21. Isaiah 38:21. For Isaiah, he said, "Let them take a lump of figs and lay it for a plaster upon the boil, and he shall recover." So some people say, do we tell people with cancer, why are you taking radiation or chemo? Do we tell people who have cancer that? No, because we know that God has used those things as a form of a miracle in this day and time. So taking medication during mental illness, it does not show a lack of faith in the ability of what God can do. It does not show a lack of faith in God sustaining what that person is suffering. Rather, can we consider this? That it may allow some to experience God with more clarity. What does God say about the physical need of others? Let's turn to Luke 10:25-37. What does Jesus say about the physical needs of others? And I know this is not a popular topic, or maybe you've never heard anyone speak about this over the pulpit, and I would have to say myself, I was like, okay, Jesus, you want me to talk about mental health? But the fact of the matter is, it's real. People are dealing with it every single day. As I was a middle school teacher here at Central, when I think Central was long gone at the time. It's Ruben Daniels. Do you know how many kids came and talked to me about their issues. I even had one particular girl that I dealt with every day to mentor her through the pain that she was experiencing about the loss of her mom. And it can seriously drive people crazy. But God wants us to be the open door for people to come. And like I said, to not only receive the freedom that He has given, but also to be the safe place. The problem in church, I want to say the church at large, people talk too much. People talk too much. So they don't feel like the church is a safe place to share what they really be going through, because they may hear it from Sister Soldier or from Brother so-and-so over here. But God, He wants us to take some time, train our people, and give them what the lost really need, those who are truly hurting. Luke 10:25-37. This is the parable of the Good Samaritan. And it says, on one occasion, an expert in the law stood up to test Jesus. Teacher, he asked, what must I do to inherit eternal life? What is written in the law, he replied. How do you read it? He answered, love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength and with all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. You have answered correctly, Jesus replied. Do this and you will live. But he wanted to justify himself, so he asked Jesus, and who is my neighbor? In reply, Jesus said, a man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho, where he was attacked by robbers. They stripped him of his clothes, beat him, and went away, leaving him half dead. A priest, or in this case, I want to say a pastor or a minister, he happened to be going down the same road. And when he saw him, what did he do? What did he do?
He passed by on the other side.
He passed by on the other side. You mean to tell me that the pastor saw this person on the side of the road and he passed by? Okay, let's see what the next person. So to a Levite, okay, I'm going to associate a Levite today with a worship pastor, someone like me, someone like Aries, some praise and worship leaders, okay? When he came to the place and saw him, what did they do? Passed by on the other side. But a Samaritan who did not deal with Jews and Jews did not deal with them, he traveled, came where the man was, and when he saw him, he took pity on him. He went to him and bandaged his wounds, pouring on oil and wine. Then he put the man on his donkey, brought him to an inn, and took care of him. And furthermore, the next day, he took out 2 denarii and gave them. So when he stayed overnight, y'all. Took out 2 denarii and gave them to the innkeeper. He said, look after him, he said. And when I return, I will reimburse you for any extra expense that you have. Which of these 3 do you think was a neighbor to the man who fell into the hand of the robbers? Well, the expert in the law replied, the one who had what? Compassion or mercy on him. Jesus told him, go and do likewise. God is designed for us to be the church where we do over and beyond what we're supposed to do on an everyday basis. He wants us to be the church that stays overnight for someone, that holds people's hand when they are going through, and they're going through pain and suffering. He wants us to be the church that the lost runs to, and that we can give them Jesus and give them extra, whatever extra they need. He wants us to sacrifice. Guys, we know that it is exhausting. I was exhausted as a teacher, always giving these children, mentoring them and giving them advice and, hanging on with them. Because, when someone is really going through mental anguish, it takes time to help them to build that foundation. It takes time. It takes time and it is exhausting. But God said to us, He wants us to love your neighbor as you love yourself. Well, how would you want people to love you if you had mental illness? How would you want people to take care of you if your child had autism? How would you want people to take care of your child? God wants us to awaken and stop being selfish and thinking about ourselves and what we're going through. He understands that. But do you know that even in your hurt and pain, if you reach out your hand to help someone else in their hurt and in their pain, that God will take care of your needs? Come on, somebody. I'm telling you, when I was going through a time and I didn't know what I was going to do, I promise when I began to help other people and to counsel other We are the vessels that God used for the lost. We are the vessels that God wants to use for mental illness. It's us, y'all. We don't have to be experts. We don't have to know everything. I'm standing here today. I am no expert on mental health. But when God said, listen, I want you to talk about that, and then I shared that with my mom, she was okay with it. And I was like, oh Lord, you got me talking about something I really don't know much about. But you know, in obedience, I'm here today letting some of y'all know that God loves those with mental health. By the raise of hand, how many of y'all deal with that in your family? Wow. Over half of y'all dealing with mental health. It's exhausting. It's exhausting. But God's love goes after that one. His love goes after the one. The one that doesn't know what to do, the one who used to know him and lost their way, he will go after them because his love is relentless. His love chases us down. And even if you don't have everything within you to provide for those around you dealing with mental health, can you find someone or get them into a program that can? Yes, we can. Some people truly have mental illness and have a history of mental illness in their family. Some people are predisposed to certain mental illnesses. But let me suggest this, that mental illness can be a spiritual issue. Mental illness can be a spiritual issue. I alluded to it earlier. Maybe in some cases, our depression, our anxiety, or any other thing that we can consider to be mental illness may be connected to our disobedience and our sin towards God. Though God has forgiven us for our sins and have not condemned us, let me say that again. God has not condemned us for our sins. I'm going to say it one more time. God has not condemned us. What does that mean? He is not the one pointing the finger at us and saying, I remember when. Because when we ask God for forgiveness, He forgets about it. He doesn't throw it in our face. But the enemy, he brings condemnation. The Holy Spirit, he does what? He convicts us for change. All right, so I wanted to be sure that God has forgiven us for our sins, but though He has forgiven us for our sins, there are still consequences to every decision that we make and every action that we make. We are confronted with the brokenness of ourselves and our sin. The conviction may be overwhelming. Have you ever done something and you were just so distraught? You were overwhelmed with, why did I do that? And then the consequences to it was like, oh my God, I was not thinking. Like some of these kids were going and rob a store. I'm like, what are they thinking? They're going to go to jail for years for getting a Twinkie? I mean, for licking ice cream? I mean, seriously. We become distraught about the bad choices that we make. God forgives us, but there are still consequences. And so some of us become depressed about the decisions that we make and become over anxious about the decisions that we make. But God, He still loves us. Let's take David as an example. When David was confronted with his affair with Bathsheba and the murder, y'all, first of all, he committed adultery. And then he schemed on how to take this woman and kill her husband. So he committed adultery. And then he murdered. Well, let's see what his despair was like. Let's go to Psalms 51. And I'm going to read it from this version you guys didn't have. And I really like the Passion Translation sometimes. So I'm going to read this from the Passion Translation. So give me 1 second here. Psalms 51. And the translation that I have says, God, give me mercy for your fountain of forgiveness, from your fountain of forgiveness. I know your abundant love is enough to wash away my guilt because your compassion is so great. Take away the shameful guilt of sin. Forgive the full extent of my rebellious ways and erase this deep stain on my conscience. For I'm so ashamed. I feel such pain and anguish within me. I can't get away from the sting of my sin against you, Lord. Everything I did right in front of you, for you saw it all. Against you and you above all have I sinned. Everything you say to me is infallibly true, and your judgment conquers me. Lord, I have been a sinner from birth. From the moment my mother conceived me, I know that you delight to set your truth deep in my spirit. So come into the hidden places of my heart and teach me wisdom. Purify my conscience. Make this leper clean again. Wash me in your love until I am pure in your heart. Satisfy me in your sweetness, and my song of joy will return. The places within me you have crushed will rejoice in your healing touch. Hide my sins from your face. Erase all my guilt by saving grace. I can continue. He says, create in me a new, clean heart within me. Fill me with pure thoughts. David is what? He is sorry. He is repentant. And guys, that's the key. That is the key. Yes, you may have sinned. Yes, you may have done some things and made some bad choices. But what does God desire from us? He desires from us to be what? Repentant. He just wants us to repent. We also see characters where their mental state is somehow connected to their spiritual state. Let's turn to 1 Samuel chapter 15, verses 1 through 3. Samuel also said unto Saul, the Lord sent me to anoint thee to be king over his people. So how many of you guys know about Saul being anointed? Now therefore hearken thou unto the voice of the Lord. Verse 2. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, I remember that which Amalek did to Israel, how he laid wait for him in the way when he came up from Egypt. Verse 3. Now go and smite Amalek. Okay, so what is God doing? He's giving him instructions. Go smite Amalek and utterly destroy all that they have, and spare them not, but slay both men and women, infants and suckling, ox and sheep, camel and ass. Now let's move over to chapter 15, verses 8 through 9. And he took Agag, I don't know how, maybe that's how you pronounce it, the king of the Amalekites alive. Wait a minute. What did he do? He took him alive and utterly destroyed all the people with the edge of the sword. Okay, verse 9. But Saul and the people spared Agag and the best of the sheep. What? And the oxen, you gotta be kidding me. And of the fatlings and the lambs and all that was good, and would not utterly destroy them. Wait a minute. But everything that was vile and refuse, that they destroyed them utterly. Interesting. What did God tell him to do? He told him to destroy it all.
Get rid of it, all of it.
But what did he do? He chose to keep what he wanted to keep. Okay, well let's go to 1 Samuel chapter 16. 13 through 15. Then Samuel took the horn of oil. Okay, so Samuel is the prophet of God, right? He also anointed Saul. But now, what is he doing? Let's see. Then Samuel took the horn of oil and anointed him in the midst of his brethren. Who was him, y'all? Him is David. Wait a minute, what happened to Saul? Well, and the Spirit of the Lord came upon David from that day forward. So Samuel rose up and went to Ramah. But the Spirit of the Lord departed from who? Saul. Lord of mercy. And an evil spirit from the Lord troubled him. Verse 15. And Saul's servants said unto him, even his servants knew, dude, you done messed up. You done messed up. Behold now, an evil spirit from God troubleth you. Boy, you done messed up. Now look at you. You trouble about, God has allowed this to come upon you because of what? Because of disobedience. So now, there are times when people deal with mental illness and it has nothing to do with disobedience. But there are also times when people deal with mental anguish because they have disobeyed where God has told them to do. They've walked into a path of life that God did not intend for them to go. They're running. They're running from God. And so they put themselves in a position, they open up themselves to certain spirits that God does not intend. There are many more examples, but even in our disobedience, even in our wrong decisions, God still provides hope. In the midst of mental suffering, as we are repentant, the Lord hears our cry, He heals us, and He is always ready to forgive our sin when we come to Him. But God wants us to come. Everybody say come. Come. He wants us to come. And He does not want us to be judgmental. Church, people in the church. He doesn't want us to be judgmental. Girl, you hear about what so-and-so did? Doesn't matter. Didn't Jesus forgive you for your sins? So why are you bringing up the sins of somebody else? It doesn't matter. God loves us all. And you know something that God, He shared with me not too long ago? He said, Jackie, if you're offended by something, I don't want you to tell nobody but me. And I'm not as easily offended as I used to be when I was younger. But He says, you know what? You may go and talk to the wrong person, and they may not tell you what I want you to know. I said, you want me to talk to my husband about it? Well, some things I don't want you to talk to your husband about. I just want you to talk to me. Because guess what will happen? That offense will die, which is you and God. Quicker, at least, for those who are still working on forgiveness. Don't talk about people, y'all. Don't worry about nobody else's sins but yours. Don't worry about what nobody else doing in the street but what you doing. Amen. Just love on people. Just love on people. How should the church respond to those with mental illness? Well, we give them Jesus, who is the hope to their freedom. But God wants us to also offer them love, compassion, and empathy, as well as introducing them to different programs that would help them right where they are. I was frustrated, y'all, when I kept seeing those kids come to the altar about the same thing. Why is this child still dealing with depression and we know it, and all we're doing is praying for them? Can we do a little bit more than prayer? If we know that this person over here is having suicidal thoughts, prayer is great. Fasting and praying is great. Laying our hands on them is great. But what else can we do so that these children are not suffering? And they may have come from a family where they were not brought up in church, where they don't know how to fight. They don't know what's going on. We got to be there to help them. So yes, we respond to them by giving them Jesus. We respond to them by giving them love. But let's also become aware of what is offered in the community as far as different programs that they can get into so that they can actually receive the promises of God. This is Discipleship 101. Everybody say Discipleship 101. Discipleship 101. And let me give it to you how God gave it to me. Whenever you build a house, you always have a foundation. When people get saved, and they're a baby Christian, they go into a discipleship, or they should, where you are teaching them the way of God. You're teaching them the do's and the don'ts. You're teaching them how to fight. You're teaching them all these things. So you're holding this person's hand. Daddy, can I hold your hand? Can you walk with me? So you're holding this person's hand on every phase of life. Okay, this is what you do. All right, when this happens, this is what you do. You're helping them to lay a foundation. This is what you do. So next time, when that certain thing happens, they know what to do. Okay, this is what I do when this happens. This is what I do when this happens. There are some people, when you help them lay their foundation, you can let them go. They can walk on their own. They're good. They can start building their house. They know how you have trained them. They're well, and they can do it on their own. But there are some people you gotta hold their hand for the rest of their lives. I'm serious. There's some people you got to be in the trench with for the rest of their life. It may not be as heavy, and it may not be as, it may not take most of the time that it used to take at the beginning, but you still may have to be there with them to help pull them through. Thank you, Daddy, for walking with me. And this is what God showed me. He said, you know what? He said the problem with the church at large is we think, whew, I'm done. I gave them that foundation. I helped them learn this, I helped them learn that. But God's like, no. There are some people who have been through some deep trauma. And they need your help along the way. Why do you think, and I always go Weight Watchers, I know I always do. But why do you think they're lifetime Weight Watchers? Because they know, okay, I have something that I'm dealing with and I need help with this for the rest of my life. What about AA? Okay, I know I have an alcohol problem. I may not be an alcoholic at this time, but I want to make sure I stay free from alcoholism. So I'm going to keep going to these meetings, and I'm going to keep reminding myself of why I'm free. I'm going to keep reminding myself on how to stay free. There are people who we can teach, and we will help them lay their foundation, and they'll be great. And they will help somebody else. But there are some, y'all, who it will be exhausting. They will, there's that person that they call you all the time about something and you don't want to answer the phone. Because it's draining. What they want to talk to you about is draining. They're going to make it one day. But God wants you to stand in the gap for them. He wants you to be there for them. It is exhausting sometimes. But God wants you to get some strength and be there for those who are dealing with mental illness. Some people have been through so much trauma that they will always need a mentor to help them stay on track. Mental illness can affect any of us. Pastors, worship leaders, you, me. The suspected struggle of mental illness should not be a source of shame or be kept hidden. Darren, can you pull that Twitter account up for me? There, sorry. And if you can enlarge it just a little bit. Yeah. So, I don't know how to get that off. Yeah, boom. So, let's see the guy's face. Let's bring him over a little bit. Okay. There you go, yeah. And scroll it down just a little. So this is a pastor. This is a pastor. Let's make it so we can see his face. All right. This is a pastor who was over a mega church in California. And when God asked me to speak about confronting the stigma of mental health in church, like a week later, I hear about a pastor over a mega church. He's only been over this church for like 18 months. And what happened? He committed suicide. A pastor committed suicide. Now, he was very open to his battle with depression. He was very open. But I want you guys with me to read some of the things on his Twitter page, even on the day he committed suicide. I want to read some of these things. So pause for a second there. And so he had a company, organization, for like-minded people who dealt with depression, anxiety, suicidal thoughts, all those things. He called it Anthem of Hope. So he has lonely, depressed, need someone to talk to. Check out the free Anthem of Hope. Let's go up. All right. Down, September. That was on September 9th. Need someone to talk to. Keep going. Praying for everyone affected by the hurricane in Bahamas. Temporary asylum. Keep going. All right, he had loving Jesus doesn't always cure suicidal thoughts. Y'all hear that? Loving Jesus doesn't always cure suicidal thoughts. Loving Jesus doesn't always cure depression. Loving Jesus doesn't always cure PTSD. Can Jesus cure it? Absolutely. But some people don't have a miracle. Yeah, I mean, with assistance, people can receive. But loving Jesus doesn't always cure anxiety. Does loving food always cure you from overeating? Oh, I'm sorry. So does loving Jesus cure people who love food from overeating? No. They have to talk to themselves. They eat weight, like I said, make the Weight Watchers, stuff like that. They learn how to conquer the temptation and the thoughts. It's no different, y'all. But that doesn't mean Jesus doesn't offer us companionship and comfort. He always does that. This is a man who is a pastor who deals with clinical depression, telling people, I have Jesus, but I do deal with depression. I have Jesus, and I deal with suicidal thoughts. I have Jesus, and I do deal with anxiety sometimes. That does not mean that that Jesus cannot cure those things. That there can be a miracle in life. All I'm saying to you, all I'm offering to you as a church is that sometimes people need a deeper level of help. And God wants us to be prepared to be able to provide that for those people. This pastor did a funeral for someone who committed suicide on September 9th. He did the funeral. He did the funeral, y'all. And later on that day, he committed suicide himself. A pastor. Would we say that that was a spiritual attack against him? Absolutely. Absolutely. But can we also have compassion and say, you know what? He's not alone. He's not alone. There are other people in the church, worship leaders, lay people, of course, deacons, whatever, denomination. There are people in the church dealing with them every day. And so when I heard about this, 1 week after God talked to me about it, I knew that what I was supposed to talk about today was truly God. Because not only had this happened to this pastor, my oldest daughter, I have a blended family, so there is, actually I have two biological, there's five. We have 5 kids. My oldest daughter, she had a friend, and he told his parents, who's a Christian family, I'm gay. Right? So most Christian families that I've heard where their children let them know, or their child lets them know that they're lesbian or gay, they don't know what to do with that. They don't know what to do with that information. In this similar case, his parents rejected him in a sense because of what he declared to them. And just know how huge it was hard for him to tell his parents that, right? Can you even consider what was going on in his mind to even build up the tenacity to tell his parents, I'm gay? And then once he did that, the very thing that he didn't want to happen, happened. They didn't embrace him. I mean, I get it. Trust me. I get it. But I'm trying to bring some awareness, y'all. We have to deal with some real life issues that the world is dealing with. If we don't know how to deal with it in the church, how are we going to help somebody else? All you can do is love your children, no matter what decision they make. No, you don't have to be happy with the decisions that they make. Of course not. I'm sure his parents obviously were not happy. But do you know this young man could not take the world anymore, and he hung himself? He hung himself at a party from a banister because he didn't know how to take the rejection. And no parent's perfect, trust me. I'm not pointing a finger at these parents. No parents are perfect. But people are truly going through things. And how can we just love them where they are? Even if this young man if he remained in his parents' state, just loving him where he was is the best that we can do. It's the best that we can do. Bishop, the pastor at my old church, last year, his son committed suicide. His grandson committed suicide. His parents had no idea that he was in the Navy or something like that. What was he in there? Air Force. He had taken himself out of the Air Force in his apartment, and he had dealt with bouts of depression. He too was considered gay, but dealt with bouts of depression. And how old was he? 25. Committed suicide. Nobody knew where he was. He had begun to withdraw. You guys, we gotta recognize the signs. He began to withdraw, and he committed suicide. Do you know what kind of awareness that brought to his family? And yes, there are times, church, where we can do all that we can do, and that person still makes a decision to do whatever they do. But at least we can say we were there. At least we can say we sent it to programs. At least we can say that when they called, we answered and tried to do our best to help them. Jared Wilson had a great support system. He had a great support system, but he was overcome. It happens sometimes. What we're going to do, God said, listen, I want you to tell the church to wake up, to be aware, and most of all, I want you to demonstrate who I am to not only the church, but to this world. I can hear, I promise, God has a sense of humor. I heard him saying, stop talking to the church. You know, and what I saw was one person saying it to a person, misrepresenting Jesus. And I can hear Jesus saying, would you stop representing me like that? That's not who I am. Would you stop? I don't say stuff like that. I don't do stuff like that. Would you stop? I'm love. I am compassion. Would you please show people compassion? Will you please show people love? I'm not saying to ignore certain sin. I'm not saying that. Now, please know, I'm not saying that. But God is saying, I need you to have a little bit more love. I need you to have a little bit more compassion with people who are dealing with things that we have no idea about. We have no idea. We don't know how it feels to deal with mental illness. We don't know how it feels to deal with clinical depression. So we can't technically give specific advice about something we have no idea about. But what we can do is say, hey, I have all this information for you. We're here for you as a church, but here are some other agencies that can help you. And we know them personally. We got to get to know these agencies and say, hey, there's some Christian counselors, there's some Christian psychiatrists that we trust. Please give them a call, or we'll give a call for you and set you up something. There was one, I have about 5 more minutes or so, and I'll be done. But there's a girl that I know at church, and she was saying, Jackie, you know, I dealt with cutting myself for a large part of my life. I cut myself. And she said, at each phase of my life, she said, God began to peel me like an onion. You know, just roll back what was going on in my life. She said, I tried to commit suicide 3 times. 3 times. Christian in a church. I tried to commit suicide 3 times. But in each phase of her life, God healed her more and more to the place where she is now. She's married. She has a great job. She said it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy. But she did depend on God. guess what else she did? She went to counseling. She talked to somebody about what she was going through. And the combination of Jesus and her counseling, and she did have medicine, and sometimes she's not on it now. With that combination over years of time, she's been healed. She still battles with certain things, but she's been healed. Most of us are not mental health experts. I'm not a mental health expert. But we can pray with those who are struggling within our churches and community at large. Encourage them to seek professional and medical help if need be. Be available. Everybody say be available. Walk with them. Like I was walking with my daddy, shouldering one another's burden in order to fulfill the law of Christ. Only then will we love as Christ loved and care well for those who are hurting. It seems like we're in a world that is offended about everything. But guess what? I really believe that God is offended when we are not prepared or aware on how to assist or guide those who come into our churches and need more help than what's on the surface. That's the easy stuff. But are we willing to get into the trenches with people who really need it? He is close. God is close to those who are suffering. What is constant? This is my ending. What is constant throughout Scripture is that God provides comfort to the suffering and meets the needs of the brokenhearted. His word promises that those who are in the midst of suffering with things like depression, PTSD, the effects of being bipolar, anxiety, have the hope that Jesus loves them beyond where they are, and have promised them that He has a plan for their life, one that is peaceful and well without disaster, a bright future and hope, according to Jeremiah 29:11. And according to Matthew 11:28. Did I give you that one there? Matthew 11:28. God says, Matthew 11:28. Let's read this together once he gets there. Everybody, 1, 2, 3, read. Come to me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. That is God's promise. But when they come, we got to be ready. When they come, we have to be ready. So let's take the stigma of mental health out of church. Let's take the shame out of church. What you got? What kind of issues you got? People go through real life stuff. Let's just be transparent about what we're going through. But let people know, shoot, I've been through stuff too. I'm not perfect by any means. God delivered and set me free. I mean, people want to know that they want to come to a place where real people are. And they know that you're not going to judge them because you just as jacked up as they are. And God saved you and delivered you. So if He can save and deliver you, girl, I got some hope. Because we all are a mess in our own way. One thing I found, I'm going to sing this song called Reckless Love, and we're going to get out of here. But one thing through my research I found out, Daddy Mama, was that any state you can dial 211. I didn't know that. You can dial 211 and they will give you information on agencies or whoever that can help you with dealing with whatever mental illness that you're going through. I didn't know that. But that's amazing. That is the first step. If you don't know nothing else, tell somebody, hey, dial 211. Dial 211. I tried it last night. I said, let me try this. Is it pound 211? Is it star 211? No, it's just 211. Talk or sing. And you will get there. They ask you information, and then I didn't go through the whole process. But they ask you information, and then they'll give you specific information that you need to help you walk to your freedom. Amen. Alright, so the song I sing is called Reckless Love. And it really is the heart of God. I think that's the heart of this message, is love. We gotta love everybody. No matter how crazy we think they are, no matter what issues they have. And yes, some people choose to be where they are, but it's not our choice to judge them. We're not the judge. But what we can do is love. A little bit faster. Before I spoke a word, you were singing holy. Oh, you have been so good to me. Before I take a breath, you breathe your life in me. Oh, yes, you do. chases me down. Do you know he chases after every single person? No matter what they've done, no matter what they're going through mentally, God chases everyone down. He wants us to chase people down for him. Amen? Come on, sing it last time.
Processes of life. Help us today. Is our prayer, even as we're still praying, that there's those who are watching, those in this room today, you don't know Jesus, you know religion, you know church, but you have not received a personal encounter with God, the personal name of God, you may not know. If that's you today, while we're still praying and the church is praying, in your own special way, now, commit and surrender yourself to Him. Because He loves you. He recklessly loves you. More than any of them. Receive Him today as your Savior and Lord. The Bible says He is a mother to the motherless, a father to the fatherless. He is a counselor, and He is a friend. Receive Him today. Receive Him today. If you don't have a church home, you're more than welcome over the airways. You're more than welcome to partner with Center of Attraction Outreach. Those here, you don't have a church home. Don't leave this place without us connecting with you, that you will partner and join with us. Let us help you in your spiritual journey. And that is our prayer. Give this woman of God a hand from City Gate Church of North Carolina. She is one of the lead pastors there, worship pastor on their team. And you may be seated as we get ready to have our offering for the woman of God. Get ready for that. Get ready to be prepared with your best offering for her as we send she and Brother Jackson and family back to North Carolina. This concludes the WWF.
Worshiping Warriors Fellowship. This was our last service, and we started Thursday. It was awesome. Friday, the worship explosion. You have to go to the website to see. It was just amazing. Yesterday, the workshops were great. Awesome. I tell you, we had a very good turnout. You got to see that again over there on our live streaming because it was wonderful. And this morning, we took a different twist. You know, all this week we've been talking about healing in His presence. Spiritual healing, physical healing, and emotional. And today we went to the aspect of the mental healing, which is still in the mind gate. And I thought about how when we started our church and we were over at the Y, and most of the people that came to us had mental illnesses. That's the truth. And we dealt with a lot of issues when people would call me at 2 o'clock in the morning. One girl thought she had blasphemed. She called me every hour. She even came over and they got in the bed with me. She was so scared that she was going to die. And the Lord teaches us.
Up and there was one more person.
That girl was going through, and she's from a different city. You know, she drove up, just so scared. It was a tormenting spirit. And then I was called by one of my members that came over. Her daughter was cutting her wrist. And I sat down and talked with her. Why are you doing this? Why are you cutting yourself? And prayed with her, and I never heard anything after that. But I do know that I'm not a counselor or a psychiatrist, and a professional, so we would like you to get help. See, some people don't want to listen to their pastors, right? You need professional help. So then one person I talked to, and I asked them, why aren't you taking your medicine? They got real mad at me and left the church. Pulled their whole family out. But all I said to her, why aren't you taking your medicine? Didn't the doctor prescribe it? Go back to the doctor and ask him if you could stop taking that medicine.
See, there's a side of this too that we don't want to talk about either, Pastor Jackson, and that is that because you take medication, you must have less faith than someone who doesn't take medication. You know, these mental games the devil takes us through. Can I get one or two witnesses on that? But the truth is, God wants you to have a quality of life that you can still serve Him to the depth and the strength and the grace that He has for you. I just needed to say that. I need to say that to you now. All right? So don't be condemned. And don't be accused, allow the accusations from others to come to you because of medication. For those of us that don't take medication, praise the Lord. Those of us who are taking medication, praise the Lord. As we still believe God to be our deliverer. But you see, we don't want to live in the meantime. We want to live here and there, but we don't want to live in the meantime. meantime. Somebody say the meantime. There's a meantime ministry that we need to certainly project and certainly minister to those because they don't understand. We're such of a hype or hyper faith that we lose so many wonderful people because they are in the process of life and we don't know how to deal with processes. We don't know how to do it.
Well, the last testimony was that one lady that came over and everything she saw on TV, she still thought I was talking to her and she was scared and I rode around with her to 2 or 3 in the morning. I was scared too because she was having hallucinations and the TV said something like magazine, she said like it's machine gunning. She was really going through. But the Lord sent those to us to teach us compassion. She's a mother of about 7 children or more, and to teach us compassion, and God gives you a chance to work with people. So it's a blessing when they come here and get delivered, and some people have been instantly delivered, others, they got to take the medicine. And you know what somebody said? I'd rather be a live dog than a dead lion. So take the medicine, be a live dog, instead of, I ain't taking nothing. We over at your funeral crying.
Right.
Because you refuse to take the high blood pressure medicine.
We saw that too.
Dropped dead at home and told the doctor, I ain't taking no medicine. I ain't got no high blood pressure. They got him for a minute and beer from Cologne. Wife went in there, he was dead. A young one. That's all I'll say, a young one, a leader. So we got to have wisdom and balance. Everybody say wisdom and balance. Now, I was praying for me to have a regular delivery when I was with Jacqueline. But the sky was silent and I hear nothing from God. I said, God, I wonder what that means. I've been in the hospital a long time trying to push this baby out. What's going on? And all of a sudden they came and said, you got to have C-section. She said, remember when you were there argue at the doctor's office? Yeah, Lord, I remember. I was just letting you know you're going to have a C-section. And here she comes with the C-section. And I had all my baby C-section. What if I said, no, I'm going to have to have natural. I'm just going to push it out. I would have been dead. So you got to know your pathway of healing. You got to find your pathway. That's all we want to say. We're very balanced as pastors because we've seen God give people a miracle to the miracle. Okay, amen? So that's good. Good word today. Come on, give her a hand. That's a good word. Did it make you think? Did it make you think?
Amen.
We have to thank everybody for that great food. We had some wonderful food. On Thursday, that famous sloppy Joe that Dick made, it was in the house Thursday night. Everybody was back there eating double. And then we had people buy chips and cookies. Who's the one that bought cookies and chips? Come on, Lily, did you help us with chips and stand-up? Cookies was Aaron's was cookies. Somebody else brought cookies. I think Melissa went and got some stuff for us. And then I'm just trying to remember everybody to help. Friday, we had this delicious chicken salad made by this famous person from Flint named Everybody was just eating up. And then we had her pasta salad. Oh, Shalonda, that was so good. It was so good. It was wonderful. And then we had a tuna casserole made by Mrs. Where's she at? Mrs. Baker over there. She made that. We had those dishes were so good. Everybody enjoyed them. So Friday, and then Terry Pruitt catered on Saturday. That was real good too, right? So we had 4 services of food, 4 days of food. Oh, that was just wonderful. Well, four times Thursday, Friday, Saturday, yeah. But it was wonderful. And today we have leftovers in the bag. So if you go back there and get some before it's all gone. There's all kind of cookies back there and pound cakes and all kind of stuff. So make sure you do some of that. But we want to thank everybody. Come on, give them a hand to help supply the food. That was amazing.
Those of you who labored those days, amen, the minstrels, and also the sound, and Pastor Dave, all of you who helped out those days, we certainly thank you. We could not have been successful without you being there as the gears to the engine of WWF. Amen? Amen. Praise the Lord. Somebody said this was the best WWF of the 6 or whatever. Anybody can say amen to that? All right. Praise God. All right. Amen. Getting better and better. All right. I want you to give your best offering. Be writing out a check right now to COA. Amen. For the woman of God here today. And come and give as you are. Just come as you are. Amen. Hallelujah. God bless you today. Thank you for your giving. God loves a cheerful giver. God loves a cheerful giver. And a cheerful player. He loves that. He loves that today. Amen. Bless you so much. Bless you. Thank you. Stretch your hand this way, Father. We thank you for those who have given today, that you will bless, increase, wonderful return. We declare right now in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Well, we have some other family members here, a little tardy, but they want to come up at this time. Amen. Come on up, Patty and Hubert. Y'all come on up with the baby. Amen. Nyla and Nia. Amen. And do we have is Nathaniel and Zayden here? All right, go get them. Go get them. Amen. And then we have the other Glens here as well. Y'all come on up. Y'all come on up. Stand up here. Let them take a look at you. Amen. Look them up and down. Look them up and down. Come on. Come on. Amen. This is where y'all belong, up front and center. Hallelujah. All these bearded gentlemen. Amen. Well, y'all know Pastor here, Pastor Glenn. Amen. Did a good job Thursday. This is Hubert Brown, and this is my daughter, Patricia. And these are the angels. Amen. All right. All right. Hallelujah. And y'all met little Mousy Mouse here. Amen. This is Nia. Hi, baby. And this is Nyla.
Show everybody shoo-shoo. Shoo-shoo. Everybody shoo-shoo. Okay. Shoo-shoo. Shoo-shoo. Look at her. All right, now, hey! Shoo-shoo. Hi, shoo-shoo. And then...
And then we have, who else do we have?
Nathaniel.
Nathaniel. How old are you, Nathaniel?
Hey, what are you looking at?
And you are?
5, and my name is Seda, and I am a booty.
So I just wanted to piggyback on what Jackie was saying. Professionally, I'm a suicide prevention program manager. And so when it comes to mental health, I think that sometimes people don't understand that a lot of the scriptures and thoughts that are expressed in the Bible are synonymous to what we talk about in psychology. We just call it something else, right? So we speak those things as though they are. As a man speaketh, so is he. And the reason that that's very important is because the brain cannot differentiate between an experience and a powerful thought, right? And so if you're operating in radical faith and you're believing for something, there's another scripture that says, write a vision and make it plain. And so when you're in your quiet time in the morning, I want you guys to start practicing to have radical faith. You can have whatever you want. There's another scripture that says, be it unto your faith. So you have to choose to believe that whatever you want is possible, but it starts in the mind. Everything expands from the mind. So I just want to encourage you to operate in a spirit of thankfulness and gratitude. We don't expand from lack. We expand from a place of gratitude and acceptance.
And that's what waters our faith. So I just want to encourage you guys to keep working on your thoughts, to keep speaking your faith, and believing that what you want will manifest.
Amen. Right. Thank you all for coming. Amen. Hallelujah. Let's stand and get ready for our benediction. We thank you for your patience today. Again, we're so excited. Let me say that you've made your pastor, prophetess, so glad for all that you've contributed and all that you've done. And she is so excited because of it. I know some of you couldn't make it for whatever reason, sickness and that sort of thing, but it's okay. Praise the Lord. We still love him, and we thank God that we see some of you even today. Let me just say that Pastor Jackson would like to minister to anyone who may be suffering with some PTSD. Is it PTSD? What is it? SD, okay? Or anxiety, or any of that, or someone in your family that you want to stand in proxy for. She'll be more than willing to pray with you after the benediction, okay? All right, so please keep that in mind. A benediction as our moderator comes, amen. We thank God for our moderator, amen. Mary Ann,
The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord makes his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. So they shall invoke my name on the sons of Israel, and I shall bless them. Go in peace and keep Jesus center of your attraction. Amen. Love on someone before you leave.